So on our agenda, my hope is that we can dial in school discipline so that we can take it to our Wednesday board meeting. And then
Yes.
I added at the very top the trained school dog policy, if we get to it today, to start kind of looking at it, just so, not that it will necessarily make it to this, but otherwise it gets to the August and he can't start the year until we have that approved, if we're gonna move forward with that. So
Right.
just to start looking at it now. And then continue to just start working through all of our annual policies.
Okay. Okie doke. Because we got lots of them.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that. Where
Yeah.
is that document?
I did-
The
I-
student discipline one?
No,
this,
this one, board consideration.
policies for the meeting.
I don't
where's
think
my
we-
computer?
Is it in
Rose,
the?
Rose, it is. Rosanna,
the
will you just
drive?
reshare it since you have it up there with them really fast? I'm sorry.
No, if you want to just keep it, I mean, if it's in the drive.
It is in the drive, but that way it'll just be right up in your email. Did I not bring my computer?
It doesn't
Yes, I
look
didn't.
like it. But that's okay.
We can pause if you really go
need-
get it.
Okay. It's Friday.
Yay.
Oh, here you go. Okay, 7.
So Rosanna, can we scroll down to the
7-8.
ones that are board?
Yeah, because I searched my email
Yeah.
and the 7-1 came up.
And so here's,
Okay, there it
will
is.
you pull that one up, the school discipline? Cause cause this is the one we were working off of as of last week, the work in progress one.
Yes.
Rosanna, will you scroll down just a little bit for a second, cause I'm just,
Okay, this is the one. Yeah. Okay.
keep going.
No, I'm gonna do it.
I don't
Well-
see all of Michelle and Lisa's comments, so I.
It's
think-
farther down, because I was
Okay.
scrolling for that too, but I do have a question. We did have, on number 9, the quote-unquote look-alike drugs.
Mhm.
We highlighted that because I think we thought it was too, subjective. Yeah,
Right.
very broad. So,
Any input?
Well, I can tell you just from personal experience, that when I was at Betty Kiefer, I actually had a situation where a student brought, something that actually was a drug but looked like candy, and passed it off to his friends as candy, and we had a whole bunch of kids sick. So that's what I thought of when I thought of the
Okay.
lookalike drugs. But it is a little bit obviously subjective, but I think you could, I still would have been able to deal with the kiddo even without that language in there, because it actually was a drug.
right.
It was a controlled substance. So I don't know that you need that in there, if you're worried about people not really knowing what it means, but that's what I thought of when I saw that.
But there's even like the tattoos that are laced, where the kids So I mean, that's where it's kind of like,
But that isn't a lookalike drug. That
no, it's not a lookalike drug either.
No, that doesn't look like
It's a
anything.
tattoo.
It's a tattoo.
It's a special tattoo.
Really?
Yeah, it used to be a thing. I haven't heard about it lately, but yeah.
I just
Lacing
think
all sorts of stuff. But the thing is what it's laced with is the illegal component or the controlled substance component.
Right, which I think the using, possessing, distributing, purchasing, or
Yeah.
selling illegal drugs or controlled substances, I feel like that covers everything that you would ingest that you're not supposed to.
Okay, so then are we good with taking that out?
Yeah, I'm fine with
Okay.
that. I just didn't know what that was, like what,
I do know some of the fentanyl lace things, and just in kind of days gone by, they would have little blue pills that look like one thing, but were
Mhm.
actually something else.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, they're good at that.
Mhm.
And then we'd highlighted assembly of or public expression advocating for the use of substances that are illegal to minors or otherwise prohibited within this policy. And I think our concern with that is the fact that, and I could be wrong because my brain has too much stuff in it. The vape store is right next to the
Mhm.
school, so I don't know if that's why we highlighted it.
Well, I think the
I
other.
don't know.
I was gonna say, I think part of the reason we highlighted it too is we felt like, it kind of, we talk about illegal when we say specifically, and so it kind of is redundant, it's saying the same thing.
well, except that this actually, at the assembly part I was confused about, but this
Mhm.
statement actually is what we use to justify having a kid change a shirt when they come with a big marijuana leaf on it.
Mhm.
But
That's
if you,
what I
will
was
you
thinking.
scroll down?
Yes, ma'am.
Cause what we did was, keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Our whole narrative about, explicit, wherever that is, we talked about illegal stuff, and so we felt like it kinda was
Oh,
saying
yeah.
the same thing.
That was in,
Wherever it, is it right there? No?
nope, it's in the dress code.
Oh, yeah.
So I do,
I'm confused now.
but I do think it needs to be here
Okay.
under the discipline part, so that,
Okay.
because that's the part right
That's
there.
why I
that
think we
allows-
highlighted it, is because it's
Okay.
it's specific to dress.
Yeah,
I was
Okay,
like, I knew we talked about this.
Yes.
alright.
but the assembly of that part I don't understand.
Yeah, me either.
Like, what does that mean? Does that mean that we've got 3 kids who are standing in the hallway talking about marijuana use and
Right.
that becomes an assembly? I don't know what that, I don't understand
Right,
that part.
and that was part of my questioning of it too, it's like, well, what if they all decide, cause you know, I mean, that's been a conversation for years. Just that, they all decide, you know, we're gonna protest and we want marijuana to be legal or whatever, I mean,
And they're allowed to have a conversation about it.
Right.
Right.
yeah, so,
But if they all come to school in their shirts and they all start passing out literature, advocating, not that they ever would, but you never know, advocating for, you know, let's
Right.
you go marijuana, then that's an assembly.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it.
well,
Yeah, 'cause
we
it
could
does-
just leave it, and I mean, if it ever is questioned, we'll have to have somebody, a legal expert, actually tell us.
What an
What it
assembly is.
means.
Yeah.
Okay. So then scrolling down to page 3.
I mean, the point being is that whatever it is, it only is discipline if it's an illegal thing already anyways, so.
So Lisa, this is the temporary suspension piece.
Okay, so.
Yeah, this is the part, so where it says, prior to temporarily suspending any student, superintendent, or principal shall hold an informal hearing on the
Mhm.
reasons for the suspension, the opportunity to challenge those reasons. So that just seems a little bit formal for some, actually a lot of suspensions. So for example, a kiddo in the middle school gets mad at the teacher and in front of the whole class tells the teacher to F off and storms out of the classroom. That would be a day out of school as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
But I don't know that that would require an informal hearing. So the language just seemed, that was why I just,
Well,
and so maybe I'm thinking about it wrong because,
no, and actually I kind of highlighted certain words and segments because of, I think when we brought this up in the board meeting, you were talking about, you know, kind of getting back to the past of how we used to handle things,
Mhm.
which I'm totally good with. So I didn't know if the language matched what we did in the past, because
Right.
with the past superintendent, it was informal and formal and everything was very up there. I don't want to make it, I don't want the policy to be so binding that everyone's jumping through hoops, but I also don't want it to be so loose that people are slipping through the cracks.
and the principals don't exactly know what it is they're supposed to do.
Exactly.
So that's perfect. So, in the past, for the kinds of things that I just talked about. It's what I would love to see is that our due process steps are really strongly embedded in this policy, because our kids have a right to due process.
Okay.
And so at each level, like for temporary suspension, but I guess where I'm struggling a little bit is we use temporary suspension for lots of different things. It can range from the scenario I just told you to somebody's got a kill list and has made a threat. Well, they're on temporary suspension until we can get them to the board for a hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So you run this big gamut of types of scenarios. So I don't know if it's possible in the policy to say, because if we tie it back to our threat assessment,
which it should be,
and I actually have some changes that I want to bring to the board when we do that workshop to tighten that up a little bit, so the two should really marry each other. I would love to see the language in here that says under temporary suspension, low-level threat. The principal shall take a written statement from the student and other witnesses or participants. Contact parents for a meeting. If we're going to suspend kids, there should be a meeting with the parent to explain why we're suspending.
Okay, hold on, you have to back up because I can't type that
I'm
fast.
sorry.
So low-level threat, the principal should, or the principal shall.
Take a written statement from the student and any witnesses or other adults involved.
Okay.
And then and the next step needs to be contact parents.
Okay.
And for a meeting, and that can be a phone meeting if parents can't come in, to discuss the situation and the consequence, and that could be a day out of school or whatever. That doesn't have to be in there, but
no.
Then a mid-level threat, or mid-level threat.
Oops. Okay.
They're gonna follow all of those same.
So just follow low level and whatever that is.
And the meeting with the parents must be in person, and there is a contract that is written and agreed upon by the parent and the administrator.
I really don't like the fact that we're throwing these contracts around.
Okay.
Didn't we talk about renaming them?
Well, we have the re-entry contract. This is what I would like to call it is a behavior contract or a behavior plan. You can call it a behavior plan if you want. But it's really important to me that if we're going to put a kid on a behavior plan, that the parents have seen the behavior plan, that they've talked through it with the principal, they understand what it is, and they feel like the student can meet the expectations of the plan. It doesn't do us any good to create a plan that the principal thinks is really good, that the parents know for sure my child can't do that. You know,
I don't know that that's the right language. I'm just sort of putting it down so we can revamp
And then
these.
the high level threat would be immediate, you would follow all of those same things because the due process has got to be in there. And then our threat assessment then says that there's communication with the superintendent. And then the student is suspended from school until a hearing with the board. That's the change, because we've not had that.
Okay. All right, and the reason it's called temporary suspension is because that's what it's called in the statute.
Right, and because only the board has the power to expel a student from school.
Right.
So,
And Lisa, that informal hearing, that language is in that statute as well. So I know you have a problem with that term, it's in here, so.
But for every, where is it?
It just says here, where was it? It was, I think it's up here, superintendent, right here. Temporary suspend,
Just do, if you do control
Oh,
F and
yes.
look for,
Oh, right there, I see it. Prior to suspending the student, superintendent or principal shall grant an informal hearing on the reasons for the suspension and the opportunity to challenge those reasons. That's the meeting. So we can leave it in there, but that's what that is. That's that due process piece that we are obligated to provide the kids. Did she acknowledge?
Yes. Just teary-eyed. Emotional. Sorry, I stepped out.
nope, you're good.
Still didn't find your computer. It's in my office.
Yeah.
It's charging it.
You probably don't need it.
Awful crappy, you know? That would have been smart if my brain was working.
So we just were talking about under this temporary suspension, tying the steps back to the threat assessment, so like
Mhm.
low level threat would
Oh,
be.
that's perfect.
And really making sure that the due process pieces are in there, that this written statement is taken every time.
Do you feel like we should have a form for that, or no?
For the, I would love to have a form for the statements, the witness
Yeah.
statements, I would love that.
You could
Um,
probably tweak the, Title IX form, Brooke probably has something similar to the, pretty much be the same info, you know?
Yeah, it is really important that the kiddos have the opportunity to give their side of the story. And it's powerful when they go home, they do that, and then they go home and tell their parents a different story. And then when they come to school for the meeting and the parents are angry that their child's being picked on, and then you pull out the statement and they're like, what? What happened? So that is a powerful tool, but it's more to protect the kiddos and make sure that we're giving them those due process rights we're required to give under the Constitution.
But if we have a form, it makes it more systematic, so it's not just a random, I forget, or.
Yeah, and I think this, policy requires that if we're suspending kids, that the board is notified of that, and the easiest way to notify the board of that is to scan those forms and have a secure place where the board is keeping those by year so that we can kind of track, how often are we suspending at different schools, and that's data that I'm already looking at, but it would be good for the board to have. So the form would make that really easy. Thank you for the fruit.
You're welcome. I took in there and I broke chapter about some of the specifics and it said that if there was any follow-up before the board meeting, that you would reach out to me. Mm-hmm. I didn't think there would be that kind of other.
Is that too much language for low level threat?
Yep, that's perfect. I think this one helped the principals a lot.
Well, in their feedback, they said specifically the elementary principals said they struggle with the low level and what the steps are, so.
And then I'll be able to take that language and put it back and use this exact language in the threat assessment steps. So and then I can reference this policy.
I feel like I need to put a curtain over it. It's hard to, there's like a big glare.
Here, maybe it needs to be
You want me to
turned.
move it?
Maybe just make it more,
Try to decide.
You tell
I
me.
can, there's pieces of it, yeah, but,
I think it's that window over.
Yeah.
That's better.
yeah, but just keep coming and make it flush with the wall.
Okay.
There you go, how's
Yeah,
that?
That's good.
That's better, way better.
Thank you, Rosanna. Could you just copy and paste the low level thread and change the language to this meeting must take place in person?
I would much rather do that than to be like, look above.
Mm-hmm. And then that behavior plan.
Do we have any other behavior plans other than what this would create? Should we distinguish between them, or is it?
I think we could, we have what the reentry contract, which we can rename. But we should probably take a look at that document and make it look the way the board wants it to look with the information that the board wants in there. And then, and create, and make that a form that accompanies this policy.
So do you want me to,
So it'd be
bring up the reentry?
Yeah. Contract.
I'm gonna have to my computer, guess I'll do it right now.
So, the consequences are not necessarily part of the behavior plan. Like in my mind, the consequence is you're out of school for 5 days and, or you're out of school for 3 days, or you're in school for 3 days, and while you're in school suspension, you're going to do some research about whatever is, so there's some learning that happens. But the behavior plan isn't necessarily a consequence, it's really a support to make sure that the student can be successful with regard to whatever the behavior was. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's what it should be, is a behavioral support plan.
Yeah. That's the intent of it, is to.
Is that better?
Oh, that's a fancy term.
Sounds better than reentry, because that's what they do with convicts, go on reentry contracts and halfway houses.
Hate this keyboard.
The control B, there you go.
Well, the thing is they flipped the function
Right.
control key, and
Yep.
I
'Cause
have
it's
to
Lenovo.
laugh. Well, I have to laugh because I just have to laugh, never mind. Laughing is good.
Yep, cause that big red dot on the TV makes you laugh.
Yes, it does. Okay. Okay, so,
So can you scroll down there? Thank you, Rosanna. So,
there we go. I'm just gonna pull that part out of it because we need to, alright, so
so before,
we still have the meeting with the parents, correct?
yes, but the meeting
Okay.
doesn't happen in this, at this high level. The meeting doesn't happen until, the team will start the threat assessment document, because, what should happen is parents or principals notified of a situation. They do the due process part. They call the parents and say, I have your kiddo in the office where, this was reported. We're doing an investigation, because what we don't want is for them to start giving information to parents that we don't know for sure is accurate until we actually do the investigation. But I wanna make sure in this policy that it indicates that the principal will do the threat assessment. And then following the threat assessment, then there's the meeting with the parents to go through everything that the principal has found.
Okay, so is the investigation the threat assessment, or is it a threat assessment investigation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Are you okay if I just link in the reentry contract somewhere on here and then we can look at it? Is there a specific place, or do you want me to just put it on our board consideration doc?
Yeah, it should probably be there, but yeah, I would think both places, you could probably just put it at the bottom, and then we can at least
Okay.
go look at it, and then if it's on our running list, then we can, cause, yeah, if it becomes the form, then it'll be the 3330F.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna link
And
in.
we might have 3330 F1 and F2, because we'll have the statement form.
Right.
Student statement form, and then the behavioral support form.
Oh, right, batteries.
Right now, I'm just linking it at the very bottom of the policy.
Okay.
And then.
Thank you.
There you go.
Is anybody using that?
Yeah.
You are?
attached
Okay,
to it.
let's pull it. There you go, we're good.
You good?
Yeah, thank you. I never know.
We're gonna relabel
There we go.
that behavioral support.
Okay.
Do you want me to relabel it now? Okay. Okay.
Plan, behavioral support plan, that's what it's called.
Student behavioral. That's what it is to hear.
Okay, I have a question, because in the high level, when I was just jotting down, the meeting takes place in person, discussion shall be regarding the occurrence and situation, the consequences to be implemented. Oh wait, no, never mind. High level threat. Follow all the above. Communication with super, student temp suspended from school till meeting with board. So the principal's gonna take written statements from the witnesses and all the parties involved and the student. And then after the written statements are collected, then the parents are contacted, informing them of an ongoing threat assessment investigation involving their child. The principal shall notify the superintendent of the occurrence and threat assessment investigation. When do we determine that the student is now suspended? Or temporarily suspended?
They, typically, because the threat assessment can take a couple of days, the kiddo is suspended, that day, temporary suspension that
Okay.
day, to allow the assessment to be completed.
Okay, so in my mind then, when the parents contacted and the threat assessment investigation is informed to them that we're doing this, they're then notified their child's been suspended temporarily. Okay.
But the actual sit-down meeting to go through the details doesn't happen until after the threat assessment. I mean, there's notification of what the issue is, you know, your child wrote a kill list. We're gonna do an investigation, and then the parents are given the details after the investigation is done. Oftentimes, and part of the reason that the suspension happens immediately is, we've had lots of times where the kill list comes to light at the end of the school day. And so
Mhm.
there's no opportunity to talk to any of the kids involved until the next day. And so while we're going through that process, we have the kiddo out of school.
Do you have a specific name that you want for the written statement form? That sounds better than written statement.
Student account.
Student written statement.
What do we want to retitle? I don't know.
She's.
I said the written, if we make a form for the written statement, do you
Uh-huh.
wanna call it something other than written statement form?
She was just trying to figure out what the name would be.
Melissa said student written statement.
It should just be written statement, and then you should have a part for student, witness, and then, other parties. That's what I would do.
I emailed Brooke to say, send me the Title IX per
Oh.
this instruction, and then tweak that one, so I'll link it in as soon as I get it from Brooke,
Okay,
and we can play around with that. And then I changed I took off Becky's name for the.
So at this point, Michelle, if a principal at one of our schools calls me and says, we've got a threat that is gonna require us to do threat assessment and the
Mhm.
student's out of school, and it's that high level threat, then at this point right now, that's when I would notify the board
okay,
that we have this situation and the investigation is occurring. Because if we determine that there is credibility to the threat and that this student poses a safety risk for others at the school, we would need to have them out of school until we can get to a board meeting.
right,
So
and that can be a maximum of 10 days.
well, it could actually be 20 because the principal can do 5.
And you can do 5, and then we
I
can
can do
do,
10.
you can do 10?
Mhm. And
Oh,
then
there
you
we
can-
are.
And
Yeah.
then you can do 5, so it gives us 20 days.
Okay,
But if
okay.
it were to happen the day after our board meeting,
Right,
we would have to have a special board meeting.
Right.
So I would wanna give you a heads up as soon as I know
right,
that
okay.
there's a potential that we're gonna need to have a board meeting.
Oh, there it is.
I have the statute up and just, it says prior to suspending any student, the superintendent or principal shall grant an informal hearing. So I don't know,
That's
there's
that
like a
meet, that's that meeting.
that meeting, okay.
Yeah, this might be a little bit too much. So on the website under the Title IX,
Mhm.
there's at the bottom of that page, there's 2 different reporting forms, but
The intent of the informal hearing is
You could
for the
change
due
it though.
process, to
Okay.
ensure that a
Which,
student
where
gets
are
the
you at?
opportunity to get their
there's
side
an
of the
actual
story
Title
and that we're
IX
actually
link.
listening
Okay.
and not rushing to
Not just
judgment.
kicking it out.
It's under, district.
Oh, on our district
Yep,
website?
and then if you just hover over district, there should be, there's actual title name link.
Oh, yeah.
And then all the way at the bottom, you'll see there's 2 forms, one for
Mhm.
students and one for
Yep.
personnel, but, I mean, you might have to tweak it quite a bit, there's a, you know, cause it is,
Yeah.
so those actually might be in the, what's that?
Instead of determined, should it be initiated?
85.
Or if,
Is that where it was? Or,
down, no, that next line where you have if a threat assessment, investigation is oh, got you, sorry, you're right, I
was that where it was?
Yeah, no, you're good,
Okay, I'm lost.
leave it the way you have it.
Okay.
I didn't read the sentence ahead of it,
Oh, gotcha.
so,
Because the way I see it is they're gonna take the written statements and they're gonna have to determine if a threat assessment, and the reality is, if it's a threat assessment, then we are at a high level. If there's no threat assessment, then they should be back at the mid-level, okay? But should we? Oh, okay.
they, at the mid-level, just so you know, at the mid-level, they would be using the threat assessment document to help them identify whether it's a mid-level threat or a high-level threat. There are some questions right at the front end of that
Do
document.
they use the threat assessment document at the low level as well?
Yep.
Okay,
That's how they determine which level they're gonna be at, because there are some guiding questions right off the bat. Was the threat a specific threat? Was it, just a general statement? But that's what helps them get to that point. When they realize they're at the high level, then they have to go through that entire threat assessment, which is a
Okay.
pretty big document. And I am planning on bringing a trainer into the district this year for the administrators to train them on the threat assessment document, because we've been using it to the best of our ability without a lot of training.
okay,
So that's gonna happen this year too.
And this is one of the things that the principals asked for more clarity on.
Mm-hmm.
You guys can tweak this, I'm just gonna get a template going. And then you can say yay or nay.
We should have the district logo at the top.
Right. Yay. I changed it to
That's perfect.
Shall we have that?
that should be attached to this policy is the, notice of suspension that we're required to provide.
From the admin handbook.
Yep.
Okay. So I think we can remove the informal hearing, because we put that in there because of the statute.
Mhm.
But I do think, calling it a formal hearing, when we've gotten to that level where it has to come before the board, the expectation there is more, I mean, because I don't think informal, it's not an informal hearing because they get to bring their lawyers and it's not a conversation, it's just it's a reality
Yeah,
check.
it's a formal.
So, if we, yeah, I think that
The
would be-
informal hearings really are the meetings between the parents and the principals and the student to talk about where they talk about the incident and then, talk about whatever the consequence, agree upon the consequences, that
Right.
whole process. That's how we're doing that informal hearing part of the statute. The other thing we used to do, but I just don't think it's necessary, and where that informal hearing really stood out was, because we didn't have a threat assessment, so when something happened that was fairly big, the principals would send the students and the parents to the district office for a show cause hearing,
Mhm.
which was the informal hearing, and then the assistant superintendent made the decision as to whether or not the incident warranted a hearing with the board. I think this is,
I'm changing meeting to informal hearing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so I think the way we have it is, much better and more clear, it doesn't,
Is it in line with the threat assessment world that we, okay,
Yep.
crisis intervention?
Yep.
I'm not sure.
it is.
Ignore my ignorance of language. Okay, so I wanna make sure that we're not missing steps, cause I did pick up a few things and went back and entered them. So, okay, so the principal's taken all the written statements. When they're collected, then the principal determines if a assessment investigation needs to occur. If it doesn't, then the parents are contacted for an informal hearing. The informal hearing can take place in person or over the telephone and shall discuss the occurrence and situation and the consequences to be implemented.
Mhm.
At a low level, is there a behavior plan?
Not typically.
Okay. At the mid-level, the principal takes all the written statements, and then after the written statements are collected, they determine if threat assessment is needed, investigation is needed. If it is not needed, then the parents shall be contacted for an informal hearing, and the informal hearing shall take place in person. Discussion shall be regarding the occurrence and situation, the occurrence and situation, the consequences to be implemented, and the behavioral support plan, that shall be created. So the behavioral support plan that shall be created and agreed to by all parties.
Mhm.
At the high level, the principal takes all the written statements and after the statements are collected, needs to determine if the threat assessment investigation is needed. If it's needed, then the parents are contacted, informing them of an ongoing threat. Or, informing them of a threat assessment investigation involving their student. Okay, of an ongoing threat assessment involving their student and the student's temporary suspension. the principal shall notify the superintendent of the occurrence and threat assessment investigation. The superintendent shall notify the board of the threat assessment investigation, and a formal hearing date shall be determined.
Yes.
Okay.
So part of the threat assessment investigation, in that conversation when the principal calls the parents to let them know that that's occurring, one of the steps that is in the threat assessment investigation is that law enforcement is notified and asked to meet with the parents and just ascertain access to weapons. And
Okay.
we always let the parents know that we're going. Now, whether the parents participate on their end or not, that's up to the parents. But we always let them know that part of our process is.
Are the parents given anything either at the start of the school year, or is it posted in building of what our threat assessment investigation entails? Do they know that, or do they only find out once they're in it?
They only find out once they're in it. But
Okay.
one of the things that we want to do on our district safety website that we've got is put some of those documents out. Now, I don't necessarily want to put the threat assessment document out there,
No.
but we could for sure put the process of a threat assessment so that parents can see it.
Okay, because I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of that within the policy.
Yeah.
Because as that improves or changes or is revised, we have to come back to the policy.
Yep.
So I just want to make sure though, if we say this is a threat assessment investigation, the principal can direct them to what's going to play out.
Yep.
Because I don't think anybody should be blindsided. But
No, and they've been really good. The principals have been really good. We did a lot of these this year, threat assessments.
seriously?
Yeah, a lot.
Wow.
Um,
Okay. And the board knew nothing.
The principals are really good about keeping the parents in the loop as we
Yes.
go.
Okay.
But I'm
gonna
gonna-
Which
look at.
I honestly believe that our principals do work collaboratively with the parents. But I also know that at times there are situations where some parents may not want to work collaboratively with the principal. So,
I just linked it in.
yep. Okay, yep. Got it.
Just kinda took that form that you showed me and then went with it.
So I will bring that document when we go through the crisis plan to the boards before we put it on the website so you can see it.
Because then we lead into temporary suspension and what that actually means.
Yeah, looks fine to me, except that I think whoever, the admin is that's filling this out also needs to sign
That's a
it.
good point.
Yeah.
I created a written form with
We're on
Michelle.
two different
I
worlds
know,
here.
we're-
Yeah,
we're-
I'm like, wait a minute. What are we talking about?
So can I just ask a question, a clarifying question, just for me?
Uh-huh.
If we had a situation where we have to get to the 20 days to get to a date that works for the board,
Mhm.
how does the board, without meeting, give permission to, is that the board chair? Or do I just assume that the board's gonna do that and then the board,
We have
what?
to meet.
Yeah, we have to meet.
We just call an emergency meeting,
Okay.
Yeah.
like we've done before, we have
Yeah.
to.
Cause that has never happened, I just want you to know
Yeah.
that. So-
Well,
Right.
and at least I know with this board, I don't know any that would absolutely be like, no, I'm not going.
Right.
And as long as we have 4, we can still hold executive sessions.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, unless it was like an oddity where 3 of the board members were on vacation and couldn't remote in, but I highly doubt that would ever occur.
Okay, so, part of, where it says the superintendent shall notify, part
We
of
could
the,
put that in the norms and protocols, that
Yeah.
in the event of an emergency situation where members are not able because they're whatever. So we can
Here's
put,
where we handle it.
yeah, this
or
is how we handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
so that would be part of the communication between myself and the board, that, we're gonna need a board meeting just to get us to the,
Yeah.
but if we're gonna have a board meeting to get us to the 20 days, it makes sense to just hold the hearing, unless
Well,
Unless the
what,
parent can't or
unless the
something.
parent can't.
Yeah.
what I would I mean, I would rather state a formal hearing date instead of a board meeting, because I think when you just call it the board meeting,
Right, no, what I was saying was, if we have to have a special board meeting for you to add 5 days to get us to the formal hearing date,
Yeah.
we may as well just have the formal hearing date,
right?
right? And
Right.
not add the 5 days.
Right.
That's all I was saying.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But in the
And then
case
Rona.
where
Here's the
maybe
notice of
parents
suspension, as
can't
Lisa said,
make that date or whatever, we have to go beyond that, then that would be,
that
that
they've
would be
been
the time that
currently
we would
using.
have a board meeting simply
Yeah.
to extend the suspension. Okay.
Okay.
So I don't see that happening very often.
Oh, Lord, I pray not, but you never know. Okay, so any student who has been temporarily suspended may be readmitted to the school pursuant to the terms of a
We renamed it,
behavioral plan.
Behavioral support plan.
Yeah.
And I linked a draft at the bottom, including the written statement form and the OSS letter that gets sent out.
Okay.
So you guys can tweak it.
There's no, on high level threat, there's nothing about if they don't reach the level of, a threat assessment investigation, right? It kinda leaves you hanging, there's nothing
For what?
for the high level threat. There's nothing, what else to do if it doesn't reach the high level
You're
threat
only,
assessment,
so
right?
if it doesn't reach the high level threat, you're at a medium level threat.
Oh, okay.
Where is the federal code for gun-free school zones?
That's the USC 18 or 20, and then Idaho has its own also. I think they're both at the bottom of that policy.
Why do you keep playing with it?
I'm just trying to get I'm just making all the fonts the same font, and I have to make the lines, do we? I mean, I don't really care what the,
So we're playing around with the describe date and time, where other individuals involved, do we witness, do you have any, take any action, are there any prior incidents, student, parent, school administrator?
Is there a way to get that last signature line on?
I just sent you an
That's what we're
email
playing
with
around
something
with.
about the gun free.
Okay.
I'll get it on there once, cause I can tune this to 12 if I need to, but I'm still playing with it.
Okay.
And then this is the OSS one, but it's linked in the bottom here. And I just changed it to you and
It's got all the statutory stuff in there.
yeah, so.
And what's the other one?
get rid of this, so it doesn't roll over.
Alright, so what one is ours?
This is form, I don't know what number it will be, but we'll, we can update that later. Just saying here.
I can fix the lines.
Okay, yep, I'll leave all that to you in the, oops.
Do you think all the questions are fine?
I think so, and as long as we have the signature thing, I'll leave, you can go through and format and I can take the quote off of the bottom of, I'm gonna take it off anyways, off the bottom of that,
OSS.
yeah, that
Yeah.
letter. And then we can name it whatever, I'm just filling the footer just so
Yeah.
there's consistency. Yeah, and you can tweak it so that it's consistent with the way everything else looks.
Is there a way to make the suspension tone okay on the left one you're working on right now? The other one seems pretty busy
I don't like it. I was gonna ask you that, but I was gonna be nice about it. Well, it's a really small font and
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I can play around with it and you guys can tell me if you like it.
yeah, I agree, I think it just, cause a lot of it's just repetitive of what the policy already says. As far as the OSS letter form. The only other thing, I think the language should be clear too, I'm just not sure where we should put it. If we should put it before the temporary suspension shall not exceed blah, 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 blah. Or maybe it's already in there, I just didn't see it, but the statute says, and we sort of laid that out in the threat assessment, but the statute says prior to suspending any student, the superintendent or principal shall grant an informal hearing on the reasons for the suspension and the opportunity to challenge those reasons. And I understand that we already laid that out, you know, but I think just that statement makes it more clear for if a parent pulled this up, like maybe it needs to go before we lay out all the levels, just so they understand a little bit more simply what's happening, and then here's, you know, the different levels at which it may happen.
Michelle, are you looking for something in particular with the gun free?
Mm-hmm.
What is it you're looking for? I can try to help.
That we shall suspend them.
Oh,
Oh yeah, that's
Because,
definitely in there.
On 3205, denial of school attendance, because I looked under the criminal penalty,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't say anything about that. It says that they may be jailed for up to 1 year as a criminal penalty, but under attendance at school, it says the Board of Trustees may deny enrollment or may deny attendance at any of its schools by expulsion to any pupil who is a habitual truant, who is incorrigible, whose conduct in the judgment of the board is such as to be continuously disruptive of school discipline or of the instructional effectiveness of the school, or whose presence in a public school is detrimental to the health and safety of other pupils, or who has possessed a deadly or dangerous weapon or firearms or school property. It's a may.
It is
by our code.
And our code overwrites the federal code. You're
Right.
absolutely right, because the federal code actually says that unless your state, so you're right, the board is not forced to, right?
Okay.
Do that if the board determines that, you know, whatever it determines, it wasn't a threat, I mean, you know.
Right. Well,
It was a water
only-
gun and not a,
okay. Well, okay. I'm just trying to think. We're not, I mean, I know we're a government entity, but we're a government entity under the state level.
right,
Okay. All right. So that's why I changed it to may.
yeah,
I
good.
fixed that form.
Okay, thank you, yeah,
But Lisa, do you want it to say shall?
No.
Okay, cause it
No,
drives
because
me nuts.
we've had the situation
Right.
where unintentionally
Exactly,
things
and
come, so I'm fine with that, I just wanted to make sure, so that's a change, I'm just looking for it.
there's also, there's more clear, and it's in the board's history of when we've dealt with this thing, there's also state statute that's a little bit more clear on the state's actual gun-free zone, whatever we're required to have
right,
by the feds. It's in there somewhere. I started down that rabbit hole last time and I never.
Yeah, so I'm actually happy with
okay,
that.
Um,
I just know the federal code said
Yeah.
shall.
Yeah, it does say shall. It says shall unless, or whatever the word is, the state has blah blah blah.
Has its own.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. That gives us some latitude.
well, and I would much rather have the document say, you know, this is what we're giving you, but if you botch this, then you're going to be
Mhm.
suspended for a year, you know? So cause it really drives me nuts when we have to say, well, you're expelled for a year, but we're gonna change that. It needs to be reversed. It needs to be, here you go, and here's your consequence if you botch this one.
Yep.
So,
Perfect.
okay.
Perfect. And it gives the board the ability then to say, no, you present enough of a threat that we are
Yeah.
concerned about having you at our schools and we are
Yeah.
going to expel you. It gives you, you still have that ability to do that.
Okay,
So
which policy
then
is
you're
this?
able to read the situation.
3330, I'm gonna go see if I can find the old 3330. Why is it doing this? How come I can't?
Yeah, that's looking much better. That form than.
Like that better, okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit more.
That's the one I want. Okay, I'm gonna take this. I think. Put it over here.
So are we gonna change all the language in there that says reentry to behavioral support plan?
Yep.
Okay, so Ramona, you wanted that statement that we had prior to temporarily suspending any student. The superintendent or principal shall hold an informal hearing on the process, on the reasons for the suspension, and the opportunity to challenge those reasons.
Yeah.
Back in, okay. Where did you want, cause I just
Yeah,
copied
that's
and
the-
pasted it back in, but I didn't know, because what I did is I went back through and instead of meeting in the low and mid-level, I
Mhm.
changed that to informal hearing.
Okay.
So,
I just thought it was a much more simpler statement, you know, from the feedback that we got before from parents, like on the dress code, that was one of the things is they always look for the simplicity of the thing, so I was just,
yeah. I'll take it out from there.
somewhere before we get, I would think before we got into the whole blah, 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 blah. Maybe, or maybe it goes after, I don't know, I just feel like it needs to be
I
there
think it should be
somewhere.
at the front end
Yeah.
of it.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I was sort
Kind
of,
of sets the state, like sets the expectation that if we're gonna have any kind of temporary suspension from school, there is the opportunity for parents
yeah.
to.
And here's sort of what you can expect,
That,
kind
yeah.
of thing.
I like that you put the due process language in there.
Okay, so prior to temporarily suspending any student, the superintendent or principal shall hold an informal hearing on the reasons for the suspension and the opportunity to challenge those reasons. The following procedures to ensure due process is followed,
Will be followed.
are as follows. So we have the low-level threat, the mid-level threat, and the high-level threat, and we're telling everyone what to do in those threat scenarios. And then we go into the temporary suspension, what that means, not more than 5 days. Any student who has been temporarily suspended may be readmitted to the school pursuant to the terms of a behavioral support plan. The Board of Trustees shall be notified of any temporary suspensions, the reasons therefore, and the response, if any, thereto. That's a lot of theirs. Sorry. Okay, so that's good.
Can I, if we go back up to the low level threat?
Yep.
Would it make sense to say no/low level threat? Because we do have situations where we're temporarily suspending kids from school, not because they're posing some sort of a threat of violence, but because they're being non-compliant or just,
Unruly.
Does that make sense?
It does,
Cause
but I guess then what I would have to ask you is,
I messed with the OSS letter.
if a child is being unruly,
He's asked me to check.
is that not some sort of a threat to the educational environment?
it's definitely a disruption to the educational environment. But when we're talking this language, the low level threat, the mid level threat, and the high level threat, that truly is there's been a threat of some sort. So I just wanna make sure that we clarify that yes. that
Okay.
there could be, so there will be situations where the child isn't actually making a threat.
Okay.
Or threatening somebody with the way they're acting.
pretty good.
But, sometimes they're just being
Better
incorrigible.
than what it was,
Yeah.
I think.
They're just being little turds.
Mhm.
Okay.
So speaking of being little turds, at what
So-
point do we tell the student that they don't have to answer or sign anything? I mean, they don't have to answer and they don't have to sign anything. It could be very intimidating to be in that position, although I know,
So when you say are you talking about the behavior support plan, or are you talking?
no, this statements that, write us your statement, tell us your statement, sign this statement.
The way I always addressed it as a principal was, I wanna make sure that I'm protecting your rights. And so in order for me to do that, I need to know from your point of view what happened, and I've never one time, I don't stand over the kiddo and force them to sign it.
Right.
And sometimes even with little kids, or students who are just so emotional that they can't physically write it,
Yeah.
I've asked them, is it okay if I take notes while you talk to me, and then I have them sign it, and when I have that conversation, I say, I want you to read what I wrote and make sure that what I wrote is accurate based on your perception and I didn't capture anything incorrectly, and if it's accurate, will you sign it, just so I know that I got it right. I've never had a situation where a kiddo hasn't wanted to be able to sign that this is what happened,
Right.
from my point of view. And parents have always appreciated the fact that their kiddo had the opportunity to do that. So we
Yeah.
can, I mean, we could put the language in there, but in my mind, when they don't do it, then they're not really protecting their rights. So that's how I always approached that.
Right.
But in a high level threat, if they do sign it, they are also, whether it's coerced or not, they're also incriminating themselves.
Well, this form with the witness statement actually has the parent's signature too, so but you could put language in there that says, you know, that the student and you can put the language in there. It does, you know, whether they sign it or not, I guess, or even write it. If they don't write it, it makes it really hard for us to be fair in how we deal with the kiddo, because we're only then taking into account the statements that we
Right.
do have.
Right.
And the intent of all of this is to be as fair as possible and really do our due diligence to make sure we have accurate information.
Well, I mean, yeah.
I don't know, you can ask the board or whomever, but,
See, the way I'm reading it, unless it says so on the form, the principal's taking the written statements. If a student doesn't give one, then the student doesn't give one.
Right.
I don't know that the policy needs to say you have to sign it or you don't have to sign it, because we're not telling them they have to sign
we're
it.
just saying this is the way it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
These are the steps.
yeah, these are the steps. And honestly, I mean, I would hope that no principal would use inappropriate investigative tactics to, you know, quash their little person that they, you know, are insistent or little bad kids or whatever. I would hope that wouldn't happen.
But there is no way out, and we know that that's not the case. And I know we're being recorded, but we already know that.
I know, it's happened to some children.
Yeah.
Not all children, but some children.
Right.
Um,
But they were never told, you don't have to sign, you don't have to talk, you don't have to stay in the locked room.
okay,
You don't, there's never been a provided way out, and that's all and I know we don't say that, so was my question is, at what point does that happen?
on the form, there should be a statement, a disclosure statement that states, filling out this form is optional and voluntary. And your signing it is optional and voluntary. That language should be on the form. I don't necessarily know that it needs to go into the policy,
I agree.
but the statement of, you know, optional and voluntary should, or yeah, not involuntary, voluntary should, the right words need to go on the form.
Yep.
So that way it's on there, and whether you're an adult or a child, you have the ability to read it, hopefully, as long as you're not a kindergartner and haven't learned to read yet, but you shouldn't have to go to the form. Anyway, put the language on the form so that who's ever filling it out can see, oh, this is optional and voluntary, I don't have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if they want to walk away, they walk away.
But then that's their choice, and to not take advantage of their constitutional rights.
Correct.
per due process.
It's on there.
Thank you.
You guys can look and see if you want the verbiage, but.
Okay. So any student subject to an expulsion shall be entitled to a formal hearing before the board in accordance. So. Okay. Well, the reality is when they've made it to the board, it has to be formal. So we'll go ahead and put that there.
Yep.
Oops.
The statute allows for them to bring counsel.
Yes. This was added from the old document. Okay, that's right. That was, because we,
The purple and the red?
yep,
Yep.
Can you scroll
Okay.
down more then?
Yes.
Thank you.
Michelle's on the purple and red, I think.
well, cause we had actually started working on this policy with Chrissy, and then it was tossed away.
Oh.
And so we had made some corrections to that policy that away it went. It's like, wait a minute, I know we've done some stuff before. Okay, so. And it doesn't make Where is this one? Okay, so procedure. Okay, so we may want to revamp these. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know.
Where are you at?
I'm on page 5,
Okay.
and all my highlighted stuff.
Yep, okay.
Okay, so here we're calling building administration. Up above, we're calling principals out. So, do we keep it at building administration?
That was the principal.
Okay.
That last paragraph, I don't know, might be just a little redundant. I think we probably said a lot of that throughout the rest of the policy.
This one right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what I was, yeah.
Yeah, I think we said that, we lined that out in the steps up above. It, is it because this is specifically under the gun-free school zone section that it's being called out again?
I think it is, but I don't know that it has to be, because that's part of, I think, when people are,
I mean, you could, instead of that, you could say, well, you're already doing it right here, that we're gonna follow the steps.
Mhm.
You don't need that last paragraph. And then, I don't know if you're there yet, but for that last sentence, could we change it so it says parents shall be notified of the investigative process? Instead of, and the word before is causing me just a little bit of anxiety because sometimes principals will do a little bit of investigating before they call the parents, so they
Right.
know that they actually, this is valid.
Right.
And
So
then
some
the
truth
word,
to it and.
yeah, and the word before kind of means before we do anything, we have to call the parents, and I'd rather at least give the principal an opportunity to make sure that I don't wanna make somebody upset or cause parents undue stress if it's not a valid.
Turns out to be nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think we had went over that because I think the other thing Lynn brought up is end of the day. It's end of the day, everybody's leaving now, you know what?
now that's, yeah.
I'm looking at Coeur d'Alene's, policies, and they do have the verbiage of, the notice and conference shall follow as soon as practicable. So they have that language. Remember we were talking about that last
Yeah.
time?
As soon as practical is,
Although, I mean,
open to interpretation.
so, in the event a deadly or dangerous weapon, firearm, and or other harmful objects are brought to school or found on school property but not reported, the principal shall proceed with the investigative processes identified under the temporary suspension,
Section. Is that what we need?
Yeah.
Is that what it's actually called?
it is,
Okay.
section to determine the level of threat assessment to proceed with, and end it there.
Perfect.
Because we do identify when and how
Mhm.
parents are contacted.
Mhm.
And so, if the weapon is found, we all know it's an automatic suspension,
Mhm.
which means they're not necessarily at a no or a low, but it's just giving them
Determination
somewhere
of
to
the
go
mid
to.
or the high.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then that way, we're not having to be redundantly saying over and over and over again.
Perfect.
Okay. So. That's gone. Okay. So that cleans it up, and I think we're done.
Woohoo!
What?
I know, huh?
Oh, well, you guys
Like
have to
we
look
sh-
at those forms.
We
so-
better read it
okay.
again, no.
That's impossible, we've only been working on it for an hour.
Yeah, okay.
Is it this one, Dr. Lynn?
There's 3.
Oh,
So, this one, that you were just on,
There you go.
yeah, they're right there. So you were just on the top one. I tweaked that, so Ramona and I have been playing around with that one, and then I tweaked the notice of suspension one too, so.
alright, which one do we wanna start with?
Let's do the behavioral support plan. So we need to change the title right there, Lakeland Joint School District Student Reentry Behavior Contract.
Just a behavioral support plan.
Mhm.
It's so weird to see my name as superintendent.
It needs to be big and bold.
I've been trying on everything.
Thank you. I was just getting ready to make that centered.
And I didn't change any language on here, Lisa, I just left it other than your name and.
Yeah, this, I don't know if the board has actually gone through these and
Nope.
hasn't had a chance to even look at them, so.
Nope.
So we need to change the reentry meeting to the informal hearing, if that's what we're calling it. So the following will be determined upon the informal hearing.
obviously some of these examples, they change depending on.
Right. What the situation was.
It's weird.
So I would suggest, and we've had this conversation before with some kids in executive session, where it says I will earn average or above grades in all classes. I think we've modified that so it says passing.
Mm-hmm.
So I would suggest that we change
Just
that.
passing grades.
Yep. So on this, the principals have had some latitude to be able to go in and delete some of the things
Yeah,
that
that's
don't
why
apply.
I was gonna say, yeah, cause like what if they aren't in any extracurricular
Right.
sports or.
Or what happened doesn't have anything to do with,
Mhm. So maybe they need to be check boxes, I don't know.
instant, because,
Yeah.
because what they have been doing is they just go in and they delete the things that don't apply to
Yeah.
the kiddo.
And then they add whatever they want. They typically, at least elementary, they send it to me before they
Mm-hmm.
do anything with it.
One of the things that, so where it says I will be subject to random searches of my
Mhm.
personal property while at school, all students are subject to that based on reasonable
Right.
suspicion.
Right.
I think the language needs to be based on, I need that reasonable suspicion language needs to be there, because we don't, even with a kiddo who's on a behavioral support plan,
Mm-hmm.
we don't get to wake up in the morning and say, I'm gonna check Ramona to make sure she doesn't have anything today, when I don't have any reason to suspect
Right.
that you do.
Right.
So,
You like that?
not suspension,
Oh.
suspicion.
Suspicion. Thinking suspension.
So the, that I will not be allowed one only, is only relevant for, the athletics if it's a drug or an alcohol violation and they're in an athletic or an activities.
Mhm.
So can I take that out? I mean, this is a template.
Right, but we need the language in there if that's the violation, so that's, to Ramona's point, do they all just become check boxes and we check the ones that are relevant, or do we
But then you're making this
really long, or do we allow the principals to just delete the ones that don't apply?
yeah, cause a ton of this would not be an elementary example at all. Cause we don't worry about passing grades, we don't
Right.
have sports, we don't have closed camp. I mean, this is a secondary one for sure.
But we don't have a lot of
Mm-mm.
elementary kids that
Nope,
need a behavioral support plan because of
No, it's
behaviors.
typically my grandpa and I went hunting and I brought a knife and we're just saying that, you know, we're not gonna bring a knife to school
Right,
kind of
so
thing.
that's a low level.
Right, so we don't even have to do this now.
Right, yeah.
Right, so we
So-
could, it is gonna be definitely more secondary.
So maybe that language just needs to go up under the following will be determined upon the informal hearing.
And have it say what?
That I will not be allowed to participate, blah blah blah. I guess we can move it up with the other check boxes, I don't know.
And make them check boxes.
Yeah, or would just make that, I mean, that wouldn't pretty much all the other ones except that one.
What if you do something like this?
Yeah, I think that's the only anomaly, isn't it, down there? All the others are pretty,
And make that one a checkbox.
I don't know what these are.
You and Michelle are working together.
Oh.
You just took all of Michelle's checkboxes off.
No,
Yay!
I was just gonna add adding actual checkboxes.
Thank
Yeah.
That makes it
you.
easy.
That would be amazing.
Sorry, I get ahead of myself.
No, I'm helping.
It's actually quite
That's what
comfortable.
everybody loves about me. I'm so helpful.
Cause then it's actually checkboxes.
Yeah, we can check it.
Yeah.
And then you have this one.
Yeah.
And then, so then I guess I would say the rest of these, cause this makes more sense to me, is, this is how I would word it, but you guys can tell me otherwise. Oh, come on, checkbox, do it with me. Why is it not wanting to move the whole? Why is it not moving with it? It never does that.
Hmm.
Do you have to move it first
Because
and
I
then
was
put the
helping you.
checkbox?
Huh? That's so weird. I was just thinking this one goes with the signature part. I understand any violation.
Mhm.
Yep.
And then these could just go the following and then it's your, you know.
Indented underneath all that, yep.
So that's, if I can get it to actually let me do the checkbox. I don't know.
Yeah, because it's almost using the checkbox like a bullet point.
Yeah.
And if you use, I don't know how you're indenting, are you using a tab key or are you using the actual button? Try the
Try the button.
button and see if it'll
Okay.
move it with it.
Let me just see if I tab it and come up here and come, yeah, that's what I wanted. This was the technical way to do it.
Yep. That works.
What do you think?
Yep.
Yeah.
Except for this is funky.
It's justified, just change the alignment for the font up at the top.
Right here just right here. Oh,
Yeah, I justified it for you because I knew you like that. I'm helping.
Can you take that, there's a space between the second bullet and the third bullet?
Oh, at the very top,
Oh,
those little arrow bullets.
this looks fine to me. What do you think?
Yep.
This can come up. I mean, obviously it will.
I think the little arrows can just become regular bullets. I don't think they need,
To be that fancy,
yeah,
like that,
Just-
and
yeah,
be
they-
black.
yeah, they just, mhm. Is the whole form bold?
Yeah, I was wondering why the whole thing, like only parts of it are.
Yeah.
Unbold it.
Yeah, I mean, unless there's specifically,
The one calendar year is bolded, and then this.
Is it always 1 year?
So the reason that it doesn't have to be, but the reason that it's that way is because, we started using this format because prior to Dr. Meyer coming, anytime a kiddo brought any kind of weapon to school, it was an automatic referral to the board for an expulsion. The board expelled the child, then modified the expulsion every time.
oh,
And we were dealing with situations where, like, literally we had a first grader out of school for 20 days waiting to get in front of the board because they brought grandpa's knife to school for show and tell. And so, when you expel, the language in the statute is for 1 calendar year or can be modified. So we used it because we were doing this in lieu of going to the board for the expulsion, we used the same language. it doesn't have to be. And anytime I've used this with kids, I always tell the kiddos, you know, at the end of this school year, if you feel like you've met all of these expectations and you have proven that you're trustworthy and that you've done what we've asked of you, and you would like us to consider not carrying this into the next school year, please ask to meet with your principal and have that conversation. And the principals are really good about saying, yep, I agree, and we're just gonna end it early. But that doesn't really give us the latitude to do that because of the language there. But especially when you're going like from as a 6th grader into the junior high or an 8th grader into the high school, it's kind of nice to not have to start in a new school with a behavior plan.
Yeah.
Right? And so we always try to give the kids the opportunity to work their way out of it.
So did we go through that policy and change anytime that said, re-entry to
Behavioral,
Yes.
support,
plan.
yeah.
Would you guys be okay up at the top to kind of that point, that this behavioral contract is in effect for 1 calendar year from today's date? Is there language that we can put there that indicates that the principal or superintendent would have the ability to shorten the duration if
Yeah.
circumstances warranted it or whatever?
Yep, I think that's actually in the policy, isn't it, also? That says that the superintendent or the principal can, remove the suspension or whatever. I mean, I would think it would be the same language.
As determined, that's the.
Rosanna, the one thing we have to do, part of our check is after it gets, the board approves, we need to go and make sure where it says policy history that we're actually putting the revised dates on them.
Oh, yes.
Just reminding ourselves to do that, and that I'm putting in the, you know, if there's any history prior to that, but we're making sure that the one that's going up is actually has the date at the bottom.
Okay.
Just a quick question. On this, it says, at the bottom,
Are you on,
I'm on the drug, or the behavioral support plan. It says, I understand that any violation of board policy 3300,
It should
It
say
should be
3330.
okay, cause that's the drug policy.
Nope.
I'm like, wait a minute, what am I missing here? Okay, so on here. Do we have that on here? Okay. I don't know that we have on 3330 that these can be modified. I'm skimming it.
I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah, because what I do show that we did add was the powers and duties of a teacher, so that, you know, the teacher can maintain control of their classroom.
Right.
But as far as altering any behavioral plans, I don't show that we've,
Do we wanna add that?
I would much rather add it to the form, so that it's the language of the form as opposed to our policy.
Yep, I think it makes more sense.
They'll use it.
So can you go back to the behavioral plan?
Let's,
Okay, yeah, up at the top.
I want to put it in the footer. Just a statement that says, this plan may be modified at the discretion of the building principal at any point in time during the contract's implementation.
Perfect.
Are you typing that or you want me to?
I was gonna type it, but now I don't remember what I said.
This
was
plan may
perfect.
be modified by the principal. At any time during the implementation of the plan. any modifications, but there probably needs to be language there that says any modifications, will be communicated to the family. I don't want principals to start adding additional expectations.
Yeah, I was just like, oh wait.
There you go. Could you, if that's all we're gonna say, could we just say the principal may terminate the behavioral support plan, prior to
The
the,
expiration
the,
date.
expiration date?
And just leave it at that. Cause that way, we're giving them the control.
Yep.
And if they want to terminate it early, they can, but I don't want them to add stuff.
Yes, yeah.
And it become a whole thing again, because
Right.
if we gotta start adding, then we just need,
Another meeting,
yeah,
and
we need
there
to
are more
revisit.
behaviors that we
Yeah.
have to deal with, yep. Yes, I like that, thank you.
Mhm. And we're stating school administrator, should that be principal? Okay. Okay. Alright, so I would say that one's good to go. Moving over to, what's the next one?
The written statement.
And then, so we're gonna keep these forms associated with this form, correct?
With their policy.
With the policy, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So we don't have to label those as forms 1, 2, and 3, or A, B, and C, or however you guys do that.
So,
Lisa Arnold.
So I think all those headers should look like this header, cause I think this is more, I believe, we could look at the other forms, but I think that this format of a header is more aligned with all the other ones.
yes,
Instead of that, the header on that other form we were just on.
yeah, the notice
yeah,
of temporary
there- oh,
suspension.
okay, yep, there we go, that works, yep, and then,
For whatever reason, an extension is not right.
It's not? So what is it?
1111.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure why it said 1107.
Oh, Roseanne, are you doing that for me?
No.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Should I? I'm sorry.
No, no,
I
no,
could
no.
do it. You want? Right
I
here?
just, nope, I'm good. I just didn't want to, you know,
No, I'm right there. Hold on. Let me just
Step
do
on.
delete.
we're all working on the same doc.
Right
Oh,
there?
you're- Yep, see, I just was gonna do,
It needs 111.
right? She put one in there, I erased it, cause I.
Okay, I'm not gonna touch it. I'll put it over here. I'll hang it over here.
Okay. This is what we're saying is gonna have the same header.
And the website is actually just sd272.org.
I don't think I can go all the way over here. Oh, that's so bizarre. I don't know.
You might have to unformat the whole thing.
How do I do that?
Clear the formatting. Highlight the page in the normal format and clear. But it might mess up your whole format if you do that.
Well, guess what I'm gonna do?
Could've just made a copy of the one that's open and rename it.
So we're calling the
It's not
witness
good.
statement, policy 3330 form?
I just put that in there as a placeholder.
Okay, okay.
Cause it goes with that's why we have it 3330.
P or
Okay.
F or.
Yeah, I mean,
Right,
it's some
right.
kind of
I will
form,
call it
but
whatever you want me to call it.
yeah.
No, I just,
It's a form, but I don't know if you wanna say, yeah, I don't know what you would call it. Witness form, 3330.
well, we could have, we could then move all of these up to the, cross-reference section,
Mhm.
and have form 1, form 2,
Right,
form 3.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Right.
just wasn't sure, how we were, if we were just gonna do that F-1, F-2 kind of thing.
And then I can link this form directly into the threat assessment document also, cause it cross-references with
Mhm.
3330.
So would this form only be used in regards to that type of situation, for a disciplinary situation?
We have on, under Title IX also for harassment and those kinds of things. It looks very much like this one, I think Blend and Ramona took it actually from the Title IX.
So then the written statement would be F, oopsies. 3330 F dash 1. And then, okay, go on. The behavioral support plan would be F dash 2, because this would be, as far as the forms we have to go to.
Yep, this would be the first one.
Yeah. Notice of suspension would be number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Ramona, on that, you were just fixing the website, can
Mhm.
you add it, I can't tell if there's like 4 ones for the extension or if it still just has 3. So
Yeah,
these
here's,
cursors right there.
somebody's cursor, it's Lynn's cursor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you just
Lynn.
move it out of the way, so,
Which one are you on? The written statement?
yeah.
Or just put a 1 there, make sure that it says 1111.
Oh, weird. So now it gave you, why is it, who is that? No, that's, well, for some reason it's giving Lynn 2 cursors in the document.
It's because she's special.
I'm legitimately special.
You are.
So, we've, instead of school administrator, we've been using principal.
Okay.
So on that written statement down at the bottom where people are signing, can you change that to principal?
Oh no, you don't want that lighting, if that goes.
What's that? Oh, never mind. My bad.
It should be in the same spot.
And then notice of suspension. Why did it do that? Oh, good job.
So what we should do is just
Was-
make a form, well, I'm in there, in one of them, we should just have a template form, the district should, that just has the header and the footer as all, should be on all forms, and then anytime a form or a letter or whatever needs to be created, then that becomes a template. So then there's a more consistency, but,
Specific to policy,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That way we always
Sam,
have.
do you wanna do that or do you want me to?
Just create a blank form with this. Here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. If I can
Did
do
you
it.
hear what Ramona said?
Sorry, I was looking at something.
I can do it, it's,
Just to create a template, an actual template.
So just copy and paste?
Yep. I'm
You want
gonna
me to
do it.
or-
Yep, I got it.
Okay.
That way we already have the header set.
it's just done.
Yeah. And then the footer's already set, which is, whatever it's called, policy form or what have you.
And then we're all done. This was a meaty one.
Now those things are done. I don't wanna do that. I want an actual template. We don't have access to that. Is it getting hot in here to you guys?
Yeah. Trying to turn it down.
Yeah, a couple of degrees.
Michelle,
I mean, I'm
yeah, I was
fine.
gonna say right here, there's an extra space, you can probably.
Okay. Okay. What's that?
Did anybody's electricity go out last night?
Yes, I didn't know it did.
Liquor, ours went out, came right back on.
I woke up at midnight and was dying
Oh, your AC went off and everything?
because everything went off and I was dying and I'm like, what?
Oh, so you put it in the header. Okay, got it.
Yeah, I'm trying to move everything to an actual, header, stuff in the header and, put it where it literally goes in the document.
Oh, come on.
Like in the footnote too.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so you got it, so I'm gonna fix this, I'm just trying, I don't think we have access, but I was trying to save the one in the actual,
Do you want me
template.
to, do I need to change access?
No, I created the document, I think it's an admin thing to actually, so I created the document, but to save it in, the template selection, so you can, you go choose
Mhm.
from resume or whatever, you could be able to choose this template, but I don't, and that's what I'm looking for, I don't know that we have,
Can we put it in our policy folder?
yeah, we can, I can just move it there. We just have to remember to copy, that's the thing, is it won't actually act like a template, you'll have to copy every time.
Right.
But I can move it there, Who made that folder? That's funny. Possible superfluous info.
Me.
That would be Rosanna. Cause I asked her to go through everything because it was driving me nuts.
Yeah. Okay, policy. Do we have a template instructions, model? So I'm gonna put that in another folder and just call it templates. Yes, right there. Okay. Okay. Oh, so we do have-
Why does that look wider?
So you get hung up on these minor details. Then the meeting's over.
This was
Okay.
the one we really wanted to get through.
Yes. Makes me happy.
What was the other one? Oh, support, I don't think I. Oh.
I thought I heard you.
I just think it's funny how the voice just goes
Yeah.
up and it's really shrill the moment the animal comes around. It's so cute. Puppy dog.
Okay, that's good.
I had to change, to 1:30 because Chad,
Oh, teaching.
right, so I just changed operation and tech, so it's the same time. Is that okay?
I'm just saying yes, I'm assuming that, oh shoot, I just canceled that. I meant to say yes.
And I'm gonna leave August early, cause we already had that, but then from September on. I reached out to Jason, too, so he asked him when he wants to do the MIA, so I put that on our list. So as soon as he gives us a time, I'll schedule that too.
Question. On this, notice of temporary suspension, it says, reasons for temporary suspension, and then we say violation of student conduct code. Where is the student conduct code?
Well, wouldn't it, I would say it's a violation of 3330.
Right, that's my point.
Yes.
I mean, if
So
we,
we need to change the language, cause we
Okay.
don't have a student conduct. I mean, I guess in the handbook, but the handbook student conduct references 3330. So
I didn't make any changes
I
to
would
this
call
form,
it
so.
3330.
oh, no, I'm
Yeah.
just trying to figure out if we have a student conduct code, where is it,
That's
what
why I
does it
looked
say?
at that, I wasn't sure if we have something with the high schools that I don't know
Okay.
about.
No, they reference 3330 in the student conduct.
Hey Lynn, do you wanna put your little check boxes by the yeses and the nos instead of the lines?
On the OSS letter, right?
The notice of temporary suspension letter, is that the OSS
Yep.
letter? Okay,
I'm gonna call it the same thing as the title,
okay.
cause it's not.
Oh,
the
there
same.
we are, got it. So OSS would be out of school suspension? I'm getting there.
I'm just gonna call it the same thing then.
Suspended date, suspension date, student. Suspension.
Seriously. I do not understand what it's doing. It will not let me add, that is so weird.
Well, we can clear formatting.
It won't let me add the checkbox though. Like it wants to go in front of suspension imposed. So maybe I'll
weird.
It's cool.
Is that okay?
Sure. Looks kind of silly, but yeah.
That's what I think. I don't know why it won't let me do it side by side. I'm gonna try something.
Well, I don't know who created these lines, but I couldn't mimic them.
Which ones
Well,
are they?
because it looks like they've got two lines running.
Mhm.
Right, I couldn't change them either.
Well, because if you like go beyond, it's just the single
Right.
line.
So I could
Which-
take that off, and I think they bolded it, that's why. Do you want me to take off the bold? Cause
Oh,
I
I
can,
don't care.
so it'll look the same,
Sure.
yeah. It does look kinda funky with the big.
Well, I was trying to replicate it, and then I'm like, wait a minute, what did they do?
They use a underlined and a line, maybe.
Yeah,
They didn't put a line in there.
These people, what are they thinking?
That actually looks better, I think.
so Michelle, on this form, we say notice of temporary suspension, then that's what I put in the title, but in our policy, we just wrote notice of suspension. Do you want me to add the word temporary so it matches? Okay.
Yes, please. No.
Or not.
Let me type. Oh, that looks better.
When in doubt, put it in the table.
Seriously.
Oops, no, don't do that. You're irritating me. Stop that. Okay, so it's up here. Now, the one thing I never know how to do on here is get rid of these stupid lines.
Those are the, so
Alright.
the formatting of the table, get rid of the borders.
Okay.
Do you want to take off those lines?
Uh-huh, I do.
Of the whole thing?
Of that little table I implemented, yes.
No, that's not what I wanted.
Gone. Okay, I did it.
Good girl.
Tries helping again. See, so helpful.
So it's irritating me.
Well, why won't it go back? Let me pause it on this form, sorry. Oopsies. There. I don't know what I did. Okay, so I'm on page 2 now. It said of this
Suspension
Yes.
form.
says you are I've been changing things, I didn't.
Sure.
Okay, so you are further notified that after completion of a threat assessment, because it just said after a review, and I was
Mhm.
thinking, well, what are we reviewing? So we're doing a threat assessment. So, further notified that the after the culmination of the suspension set forth above.
I mean, do we need all of that language? The language is in the policy.
Can simplify this form.
I don't know, but I'm adding words.
Are you guys okay if I step out?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
You don't wanna keep joining us for
I love
these
spending time with
lovely-
you guys. I just, a different,
Other priorities,
to get
yes,
to.
I get it.
Thank you again for the iced tea.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for joining us and helping us with this policy.
Yeah,
Thank you.
for the input. That
Or
was
allowing
awesome.
me to.
Accommodates the wrong word, but okay, further be advised.
Have a good weekend, you guys.
Yep, you too.
Lynn, did you see Annette today?
This morning. Why, is everything okay?
I haven't received the bills yet.
I saw Brian too.
I'm gonna CC him as well.
Okay. I don't like what this is. I don't like any of this, but that's because I'm picking. Okay, so this is a notice of temporary suspension. Okay. Pursuant to the procedure adopted by the Board of Trustees of Lakeland Joint School District of the Lakeland Joint School District. An informal hearing was held pertaining to the temporary suspension of the above named student enrolled in. We just say that redundantly. Do we have to? I know we don't have to do anything, but I'm just trying to figure out.
Yep.
You're hereby notified pursuant to the procedures adopted by the Board of Trustees. An informal hearing was held pertaining to the temporary suspension of the above named student enrolled in the Lakeland Joint School District.
Yep.
Okay, reasons for temporary suspension. Violation of policy 3330. Date of informal hearing, sentence, suspension imposed. Number of days suspended. But this is, okay, question. This is a notice of temporary suspension, so suspension's
Right.
So there's no point for my little table. Because we're saying that was a suspension imposed. Well, it was. That's why we're giving them notice of the temporary suspension.
Right, so.
Am I misreading
Well, what
this?
if we say you're suspended, but, there was something that we dealt with, remember, and they were like suspended, but, they were out of school, but they were out of school past the suspension. I don't remember what it was, but they got like, oh, well, you've already been out this many days, so we're just gonna call it this. I mean, like there was a temporary suspension, but no further suspension was imposed. So I don't know why you need a checkbox if that's what we're doing.
Well, I don't understand why we're letting them know that a suspension was imposed when we're sending them this notice of temporary suspension. The reality is a suspension was
Or
imposed.
they wouldn't be getting a letter.
Exactly.
So I think you could take off that whole line.
Yeah.
That would be
You
my
could say date of
boss.
informal hearing, number of days suspended, dates of suspension, but suspension imposed, yes or no. All that work on that cute table and.
I
now it's
know,
done.
I'm totally bummed.
So sorry.
It's okay. There's always something. And now I don't know how to remove it because it's not like my favorite program. Oh, there we are. Okay, there we go. Okay, dates of suspension, date, student, and her parents. Okay, I'm going to do this because there's more than one. Oops.
I think you can take the pronouns out. I mean, are they necessary?
According to some, they may be.
And they're named it's a student we're talking about.
Date, student, and date, student, and parent or guardian were informed of the decision. Oh, this is the, nope. That's what they've been using, okay, alright. Alright, you are further notified that after completion of a threat assessment, the superintendent may oppose an additional 10-day suspension to accompany.
Accommodate?
I know it's a wrong word. Well, I didn't want to be like,
Those
concurring
yeah.
and consecutive, because that's like, not appropriate. To accompany, now it's kind of like friendly. We're going on a picnic. To accompany the initial 5 days. I just didn't like the way it was previously
Yeah.
worded, so I'm not really sure how
Well,
to
I was
reword
wondering
it.
why 10 days needed accommodations, but
Yeah,
yeah.
the superintendent may impose an additional 10-day suspension. Period. In the event the Board of Trustees determines the immediate return of the student would be detrimental to the Lakeland Joint School District and other students' health, welfare, or safety, the board may impose, do we talk about the board anywhere else?
Yes.
We do.
At the very end, correct. We said the boards, blah,
Okay.
blah, blah, whatever it was.
Board of Trustees. Oopsies. It's got Peter in mind. Okay. So then. Board. So, I guess another question I have is at the end of this little paragraph, we're saying, you will be given notice in the event additional suspensions are imposed. Do we do that? I mean, do we give them notice? Because everything then gets wrapped up into the behavioral.
I don't think it's a written notice, I think that's just a phone call,
Okay. So,
because then you'd be already sending out this form.
hello.
I mean, cause there's constant communication of when the student's coming back.
You will be informed in the event additional suspensions are imposed.
Except, what was the 5 days? Because we're only at 15 days and there can be a total of 20 before they come before the board, so,
It's the original 5 days,
right, yeah,
and then
where's,
10,
yeah,
and then 5 from the
Right.
board.
So it
Right.
just doesn't note the 5, that
right,
the
The original.
principal can.
oh, okay.
Which, so the thing is we're telling them how many days they're initially suspended up on page 1.
Oh, okay.
And then we're letting them know that the superintendent can add 10 days and then the board can add 10
Okay.
days.
Do you want to name it a number of days initially suspended, or, I mean, that just infers that there might be more, I guess. And hopefully it's.
Is it up to 5 though, or is it automatically 5?
It's,
No, we can add up to 5.
No, I mean the original. The original.
Is up to
principal.
5.
Yeah,
up
They
to
they
five.
have,
yeah, it depends
Yeah.
on what the issue
what
is.
it
right. We're already talking to them. We don't need to pretend like, we're now bringing them into it. Please be advised. You may challenge the suspension by requesting a conference. Now we're having conferences. We don't have a conference anywhere else.
A meeting,
But it would be an informal hearing.
okay, informal hearings.
Interesting.
So consistent with the
Yeah.
language.
With the principal or superintendent imposing the suspension, and you may have a right to a hearing following the and you have a right to a formal hearing following the
Informal.
informal hearing. If you still feel that's rude. If you're not taking our word for it.
Couldn't you just say something like, you have a right to a formal hearing following, you have the right to a formal hearing, if you have additional concerns with the board, or something to that effect, and just take out all the following the informal and.
Well, what I'm curious about does that say that? Yeah. Well, see, when we get to the point where the school board determines that the kiddo can't return for another, but that's not true.
What's that? What's not true?
Oh, no, I guess it would be. In the event, okay, so that would be true, cause I was, the 5 days that the board is, overseeing, because over here, so we say temporary suspension shall not exceed 5 school days, the superintendent may extend it an additional 10 days, the board may extend for another 5 days, upon the finding that immediate return to school attendance by the temporarily suspended student would be detrimental to other students' health, welfare, or safety. So, health, welfare, or safety. Okay, let's see here. Challenge the suspension by requesting an informal hearing, but what I'm trying to figure out is they've already been given an informal hearing.
Right.
Okay. Seems
So
low,
really this
but I'm
is
good.
about you're requesting a formal hearing with the board, right?
Well,
Well, no, because the statute says that the suspension can be imposed, and then if they still don't agree, so somewhere in there, they're being notified, right? There's a discussion taking place, and it says even with the informal hearing, if they still don't agree,
They still
or the
can
informal,
challenge it.
yeah, the informal hearing is because,
But when they're challenging it for a formal, the challenge is to meet with the board, correct? Or is it additionally with the superintendent?
yeah, they have the ability to go back,
well, cause we state at the in the policy, prior to temporarily suspending any student. So prior to the temporary suspension,
right,
you shall hold an informal hearing on the reasons for the suspension and the opportunity to challenge those reasons. Well, that's poor language, okay. Shall hold an informal hearing on the reasons for the suspension and
that's exactly what the statute says.
the
Opportunity to challenge those reasons.
Parents and students have, okay. So prior to temporarily suspending any student, the superintendent or principal shall hold an informal hearing on the reasons for the suspension. Where parents and students have the opportunity to challenge those reasons. Oh. Okay, so prior to temporarily this, I'm flipped back
Yeah,
over to the
yeah.
policy. So prior to temporarily suspending any student, the superintendent or principal shall hold an informal hearing on the reasons for the suspension to provide parents and students an opportunity to challenge those reasons. That's not right either. Okay. Prior to temporarily suspending any student, the superintendent or principal shall hold an informal hearing on the reasons for the suspension. During an informal hearing, parents and students have the opportunity to challenge those reasons. The following procedures to ensure due process are as follows. Does that sound better? And like more of an understanding? So it's during the informal hearing
Right.
that
Procedure,
parents, yeah, that you're given the opportunity to challenge the reasons, to challenge,
Those reasons.
you know, the reasons for a temporary suspension. There we go. So then back over here to our, yeah, okay.
Can you go back to that? So it says the following procedures to ensure due process are as follows.
Well, yeah.
The following procedures ensure due process, I mean,
Well, yeah, okay. So the following procedures regarding,
Due process
Yeah.
are as follows.
but nowhere else have we talked
Ensuring.
about due process. This is,
right,
because Lisa wanted to make sure that
Right.
due process occurs.
right,
So,
You could even change regarding to ensuring. The
Yeah,
following
right.
procedures ensure due process
right.
Mm-hmm.
are as follows. I don't like that either.
procedures.
Are as follows.
Yep, there we go.
There you go.
That's better.
Okay. So,
Actually, you take the word following out.
Yeah, cause you already know.
follows. Okay. Or due process
process
procedures are
Yes.
as follows.
Thank you. Yep.
We're following the follows because that's a lot what we do. It's like having a picnic.
It's
Yeah.
Friday.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got to get, oh wait, no, I've got a little bit more time. I have to be in Sandpoint at 2, so. Okay. So, I don't know.
Are you on the notice?
Yeah, back over to the notice.
Okay.
I wanna take this sentence out, my highlighted portion,
Uh-huh.
because
You stated
they've
that.
already gone through the informal
Right, I agree.
process.
That's what's making this so muddy.
Yeah, okay, and if we just
So-
say,
You have a right to a formal hearing following the informal hearing if you feel your child has been wrongfully suspended.
formal hearing, if you feel your child has been wrongfully suspended.
Yeah.
Okay.
The end.
Everyone's like, I'm done. Over it.
You have been notified in person, or a copy of this notice has been given to you blank to carry. What? We don't make them carry this home. How do we know it gets to the parent? And
We don't, it's just like them saying, oh, well, we mailed it to you, even though there's no certified return copy, but we mailed it.
please tell me, we don't make the little guy take this home.
I don't know that an elementary person has ever sent this home because we don't
Okay.
really do suspension, you know, so.
I don't think that a high school student would be running home going, look, Daddy,
I mean,
what I got."
I just feel like where it says you've been notified in person or, I mean, I get that a copy of this notice, because,
It should be mailed,
yeah,
mailed or in person, I don't know that we should, I mean, I guess maybe we should get Lisa's input on it, but,
and say certified mail.
yeah.
Well, cause, okay, on page 1, we have the date the student and parent were
Mhm.
informed of the decision. So we could state a copy of this notice has been mailed to the above identified address,
Right.
because this is,
Yeah.
that way,
Or you can just make
Well,
check
'cause
boxes and one
you-
says in person and one says mailed to above address.
Make it simple. You get to bring your check boxes back.
well, okay, but
I mean, it's up to you, either way.
do we need to identify on here that we've notified them in person? Cause here's, I think, what I don't wanna see happen is we are obviously completing this report or this notice of temporary suspension. The building principal is. So when they do that and they're on the phone with Susie's mom and they're like, "Okay, Susie's suspended, you gotta come pick her up." Okay. I could
That's
see
your
them.
notification and that's your conversation. And then when they get there, you're giving them the form.
Okay, so then, but it would be, well, I would really hope we're not giving them this form, that we are giving them a copy.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
but they're getting a copy of it at that
So,
point.
And this is to the parent.
Provided,
I mean, the principal is filling this out electronically and then they're printing it for the parent. Because it has to be CC'd to Lisa, so it's being emailed to Lisa, so they're keeping a digital copy, probably not a paper copy.
so can you, make the checkbox there and then have in person,
Do you wanna write, you mean right here?
uh-huh.
Do exactly what you did. What do you want it to be? Oh, not that. Thing.
Well, cause the other portion of the sentence would have to be in the table as well.
I know.
Well, cause I was gonna say, which maybe we could just do it below. So, a copy of this notice has been provided to the parent, and it should state, in person, via electronic mail, via standard mail.
Okay, now how do I get that to come up here?
Oh, let's just leave it
Like
that way,
that?
yeah. And then we could maybe, let's,
I'm not sure we're better.
well, yeah, me too, but.
But I think I can do something. Oh,
I think Lynn's trying to do something.
oh, that didn't work.
Lynn.
Hold on, let me see if I can do one thing,
Students'
and if it
record.
doesn't work, then I
Have
don't
been,
know.
students' records have been reviewed and their blank is no evidence qualifies or may qualify for services under the Individuals with Disabilities Act. Okay, so it's kind of an important paragraph.
Mhm.
So let's go here. The students.
Oh, sorry.
Surprise!
So sorry.
Student records. The
Just seeing if you're on your
students'
toes.
records have been reviewed and there is.
Oh, I just want you to know I'm awesome.
Whoa, you are good.
Whenever I do something I've never done before, I'm like, oh, it's a good compliment for myself. This would be another checkbox.
Okay.
That's what they're doing. So the student's records have been reviewed and there is and or is no, which sounds funky, evidence that the student qualifies or may. And it should just say the student has, there is no, the student records have been reviewed and there is, the student does not qualify or may qualify. I just,
Alright, so we could state, so the student's records have been reviewed and no evidence qualifies the student for services under the Individuals with Disabilities Act or Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. So we're just assuming there is none and they have to check that. If they don't check it, but is that too much, well, we could just, let's just do 2.
I mean, they need to be reviewing it, cause if we have a student with a disability, then we have to do a manifestation.
Evidence. Qualifies the students. So, what if we just do it twice? So, because we're checkbox happy, because I love it. So the student qualifies or the student does not qualify. So they have to check one of the boxes instead of just assuming that they only have to check one.
So to simplify it, you wanna say something like this student's records have been reviewed and this student qualifies for services under the Individuals with Disability Act. And then the other one is this records have reviewed and this student does not qualify. So which does and does not. Just to simplify it. And you could take out for services, it could just say this student's records have been reviewed and the student does not qualify under the individual. I mean, you can leave services too, but
Hold on. Because I hear you, but I'm not processing your words because
no, I
I'm
got
playing
it.
on my computer. Student.
I like that.
Okay, so we have student qualifies or student does not qualify for services or,
I would say services.
yeah. Under the Individuals with Disability Education Act or Section 504 Rehabilitation Act. Okay.
So that, they have to check it one way or the other.
Lord. Now, this notice, is this is sent out by the principal, correct?
Mm-hmm. Well, and or the, I mean, didn't we say at the top something about
The
superintendent,
superintendent.
so it could be one or the other. But more than likely it would be the principal, the superintendent would, cause it says CC the superintendent, so it'd be the principal.
Would it always be the principal?
For this
Mhm.
problem, I mean, it could be the assistant principal, but,
But the superintendent wouldn't really get involved at this level, right? It'd
they might
always
be informed, but the work side of it would come from the principal. I like that way better. It's clear.
But do we want it to say principal? I mean, we're switching back instead of making everything so we're saying principal. So, but I don't wanna be in a situation where the principal's on vacation and, I mean, but then again, they could always just line it out and put assistant underneath it.
Right. Yeah. Cause then otherwise you're putting principal designee on everything.
I hate that
Yeah.
passionately. Okay. So I think that's
I think we're done.
like progress, ladies.
This is great.
Except I'm making more changes to another one.
What?
Cause I'm trying to get the lines.
It's one of
Well-
the ones we're working on.
What helps?
The written statement form. Because some of the stuff broke in the middle of, the lines or the, where they write their statement.
Oh, it did?
Yeah,
Oh, why did they do that? That's weird.
okay, so, why are you doing that, Michelle?
Because I can.
No, I know, there was already 6 lines to all the statements, or all the,
I think
you
it
can
has
just copy and paste them from the top one?
I think these are bold and that's regular.
Yep, you can go up one more, oh, there you got 'em.
Alright. Cause then you can actually put some space for people to write when there is.
I'm not gonna mess with that.
Go.
And then are we gonna copy and paste that while you're doing it? You're so smart. I don't know why I got all messed up. It was fine before.
Well, I went back and started, basically I did the same thing Michelle just did.
I like,
And I was
I
trying
like
to,
the top of it. You changed the top of it. That looks better.
yeah, well, I changed all the lines too, and I was trying to get it all to 3 pages instead of 4.
Oh,
And,
gotcha.
but it was breaking in the midst of the written explain whatever,
Yeah.
and like,
It looks better.
just so that everything stays together instead of,
Yeah.
uh,
Fractured. looking.
right.
We can make it happen, I promise. How can I just hate when there's like no room for anyone to write. And we
Right.
do all these crampy little lines.
Yep, well, and all your lines are, let's see,
These are bold, these are not.
I didn't bold them, it's
No,
all
they're
underlined.
Underlining.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
because I
underlined?
tabbed them. And part of it is the font. So see if you take this and you make it go down, the line is not as darker.
Hmm.
So maybe that will help too, because these are on a 14 font.
Ooh, 3 pages.
That sounds like an awful little aircraft.
So yeah, those are. Okay.
So then we'll have 3 forms and the policy to add to the other policies. Whatever they were.
Do you want me to pull those forms out separately? Would that help? So
Yeah,
that
well, they'll
Rosanna
have-
will upload them
yeah,
separately, okay?
yeah,
I'm gonna
she'll
pull them
have
out
to-
right now, Rosanna, for you.
Okay.
She'll have to put them on the agenda.
That's weird, I think.
So we have 4 policies and 3 forms, right?
Yep, you are correct. Yep. And I put them all under where it says policies for July board
Mhm.
meeting.
You're awesome.
Do we have to say legal guardian? That's interesting.
Looks perfect.
Well, just because I wanted to give them a little bit more space.
Yeah.
Okay, Ramona, it's back to 3 pages.
Yep. At least it simplifies it instead of, and it's more cohesive, stays together.
Yeah.
I gotta do it, I'm sorry.
What are you doing? Oh, I see, a little underline.
Well, it's, yeah, I do the underline and then you tab it because
Right.
then your spacing can be, the same. You don't have to worry about making sure the lines line up. What I struggle with though is like, I wish Google had the ability to show you like where your paragraphs are.
Like marker,
Yeah,
like your view, like.
yeah, like Word does.
Mm-hmm.
Word is my friend. I've worked on that program for so long that it's just, I know where everything is, I know the ins and outs, and then to try and figure this out, I have to constantly Google, how do I do this?
Yeah, I
And then I
do
get
the
to watch a
same.
YouTube video because, you know, I just don't know. Ugh.
Oh, I have such a headache.
Do Do you need something?
Yeah,
Okay.
changed my purse this morning, and I left my medicines in my other purse and
Alright.
ate something or did something, and my body is not
I'm
happy.
happy now.
Good.
Are we good to wrap it up?
Yes, we're good to wrap it up.
Yay.
So 4 policies and 3
3 forms.
This was good.
It was nice to be completing, not just letting it linger,
Yep.
hang out there for, another month or two.
So next time we'll jump to, if you guys are okay with this, the trained school dog, and then we'll keep working on substance and alcohol, and then
Yeah.
use of restraints.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds marvelous.
We are on the latter end of our annual, so,
Yay.
yeah.
And then we have several months that we can work on all the other ones. Hopefully not get caught up in the,
So we're good to stop recording now?
Yeah.